Hello and welcome to History Bubble Austria Part 5. Last we left off, Austria had just been defeated by the Germans and had lost most of power, especially within Germany, and having lost their place as a great power. After the defeat by the Prussians, Franz Joseph, the current emperor, had to appease the Hungarians to prevent a new revolt by creating the dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary. This divided the empire into the major Hungarian kingdom and the German part, with both also containing several other nationalities. But Franz Joseph would still be the semi-constitutional monarch over both realms. This sparked an outrage from the other nationalities who were not represented, especially the Slavs, who had almost as many people as the other two nationalities. But the ruling elite thought the Slavs were lesser and did not want to share with them. The Czechs were also not pleased with the situation and wanted more power, but this could not be accepted by the Germans and especially the Hungarians, who did not want to lose their privilege. Until the formation of the German Empire after the Franco-Prussian War, France still tried to become a great part of the German-speaking lands, but afterward it became more separated from the German identity. They soon became an unofficial parliament between the different parts of the empire for foreign and important domestic affairs, as well as a joint financial code recreated every 10 years. Hungary seemed to have the most power out of these arrangements. The empire soon enacted some reforms and gave citizens some basic rights, for example, religious equality before the law. While the parliament was quite liberal, the king was not, and resisted many of the reforms. The liberals were able to achieve much anyways, such as a 8 year of free compulsory education for all children. The economy also grew quite a lot at that time, with the new liberalized economics, with Jews for the first time being able to take a large part because of the newfound liberties. The Magyars enacted similar reforms within their land, but with a bigger focus on making the population speak Hungarian. The same was true for the German areas, but to a slightly lesser degree, with them still wanting to retain all control, and about 60% of the empire's parliament was German. One reason for this was that the Poles in Galicia were given a decent amount of autonomy, leaving them mostly out of the parliament, and the Czechs boycotting it for the continual denial of rights. In a coalition war with Russia against the Ottomans, Austria-Hungary wanted to gain Bosnia-Herzegovina for themselves, which it did, but it neither became part of Hungary or Austria, or Cisleithania, as the German-speaking part was also called, because the Hungarians felt that either of these choices would disturb the balance of power, either between the Slavs and Magyars in Hungary, or between Cisleithania and Hungary. Cisleithania did also not want more Slavs in the realm and opposed to annexation, but this was too much for Franz Joseph, who took control over Bosnia-Herzegovina and replaced the parliament of Cisleithania. With the reintegration of the Czech and emperor wanting less liberal politics, they lost their majority in the parliament permanently. Eduard von Taffe, the new prime minister, formed a new parliament, full of German conservatives and other nationalities within the empire, which had mostly been out of the more liberal regime. Even if they did not have a majority in parliament, they got most of the policies through because of the support from the emperor. Taffe tried to balance progress while still pleasing the more conservative elements of his supporters, but most of the more liberal reforms were mostly focused on the rural areas, and the urban workers got almost no rights. Education was also rolled back, making only the first 6 years compulsory. The teachers, except for in Galicia, was also forced to be Catholic. Lueger, another ambitious politician, saw that the best way to unite a large part of the anti-liberal forces was to use anti-Semitism and scapegoat the Jews for most problems. By doing this and promoting Christianity, his new group called the Christian Socials got the majority in Vienna City Council. The Christian Social did not confine to Vienna and soon spread to other parts of Austria. The reason for the anti-liberal dislike or hatred towards Jews was primarily because of the Jewish success under the more liberal rule, with them for the first time becoming prominent in most fields, especially those noticed by the masses, such as literature, banking, and industry. The newfound success of many Jews became the envy of the Christians, who felt that they should be more successful. The rise of nationalism also provided more disdain for youth, who were thought as foreign, and another ethnic group, which also made them to be thought of as lesser because of the prevalence of social Darwinism at that time. And this was while the Christian socials were on some of the least anti-Semitic groups in their alliance. Hungary, meanwhile, was able to put down most of their anti-Semitic movement within the lands, something Tafer was not interested in. This meant that most Jews either followed the liberal or socialist. Even if the socialists sometimes used anti-Semitic imagery, they at least saw everyone as equal. And even some liberal groups started to fall down the anti-Semitism route. But the socialists were soon mostly cracked down, making them largely to be replaced by the Social Democratic Party. Another soon going against the regime was the Crown Prince Rudolf, who associated himself with liberals, Jews, and pro-Magyar forces. But the Crown Prince later killed his wife and after that himself, leaving Franz Josef no son. The regime also tried to strike a compromise with the Czech, but the more nationalistic element of Czech did not want to accept this, leading to parts of the lands being put under martial law. All literate males were soon also eligible to vote. A conflict in the military soon occurred, with Hungarians trying to break the German hegemony within the army, trying to get Hungarians as an accepted language in their part of the military, which was rejected for the reason of this destroying the Germans' sense of superiority. The Magyar leadership tried to oppose, but their forces accepted under the threat of more nationalities being given their privileges. Meanwhile, the Sicilian Social Democrats had been working for universal maid suffrage, which after a while was oddly endorsed by the emperor, which led to the edict passing. Even with this, the Germans did not lose too much of the power in parliament because of the representation was associated with taxes, which made them have a 45% representation with only 36% of the population. The Social Democrats and Christian Socials also gained more seats from the liberals and nationalists, but most of these groups had been splintered and none had a majority, making it very hard to have any decisions made. Even with that, the economy was doing surprisingly well, with growth even exceeding that of Britain, even if they had a lot of catch-up to do. One reason for this was the help they got from Germany, and another was the ever-expanding railway network. The biggest reason was probably the extensive education in Austria, even when compared to most of Europe. Serbia was also becoming a problem, since it both disturbed their sphere of influence in the region as a Russian associate, and desired some of the land containing Serbs, and many Serbs in these regions wanting to unite with Serbia. Some of the Croats and Slovenes even looked to Serbia as the saviors, and from them to create a united Slavic nation or Yugoslavia. Serbia tried to move towards this goal by starting a custom union with Bulgaria, and in response, Austria-Hungary tried to impose a trade restriction, especially on pork. But the Serbians managed to get new trade partners, which only damaged Austria-Hungary. The next blunder was the annexation of Bosnia-Herzegovina, which greatly angered both Serbia and Russia and somewhat alienated Western powers. Soon, the First and Second Balkan War also expanded Serbia and increased their threat towards Austria. The internal situation was also getting worse, especially in the Balkans, with Serb nationalists in Bosnia committing acts of terrorism. But what all this will lead to will have to be explored next time, as the First World War starts. Hope to see you then.